Chosen one, why do you keep waking up at 3:47 a.m.? Why does your chest feel heavy when nothing is physically wrong? Why have faces from your past been flooding your dreams this week, people you haven't thought about in decades? Listen to me carefully. That's not insomnia. That's not anxiety. That's not your mind playing tricks on you at 70, 80, 90 years old. That's heaven sending you a warning signal. Something sacred is walking toward your tomorrow. It has your name carved into it by the finger of God himself. And here's what terrifies me for you right now. It does not knock twice. Friday, December the 20th. Mark that date. Because what's coming isn't just another day you cross off your calendar while you wait for your next doctor's appointment. Friday carries a frequency so rare, so spiritually charged, that hell has been preparing for weeks to make sure you miss it. You feel it, don't you? That electricity in the air around you. The way time feels different this week. The sudden memories surfacing moments when God showed up before, when you almost gave up but didn't. Your spirit is remembering because your spirit already knows. Friday is marked. Heaven circled it in blood-red ink before you were born. And the enemy? Oh, he noticed it too. This is why, and hear me clearly, there are 7 things you absolutely cannot do tomorrow. Not suggestions, not recommendations. 7 spiritual landmines that will detonate your divine appointment if you step on even one. At your age, you've survived wars, recessions, losses that would have buried weaker souls. Your bones know when a storm is coming before the sky even darkens. Well, chosen one, your spirit is trembling right now for a reason. Something is approaching that requires you to be spiritually armored, mentally sharp, and emotionally fortified. Before I go deeper, let me pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you sow that seed or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your time, your attention, your open heart, it all matters. If you feel this in your spirit already, if something in your chest just tightened when I said Friday, type Amen right now. Let heaven see your agreement. Because what I'm about to reveal in the next 7 warnings builds layer by layer, and the final one, the 7th one, is the most dangerous of all. If you miss this message, tomorrow may unfold without your spiritual armor. And chosen one, at this stage of your life, you cannot afford to walk into Friday unprotected. Stay with me. Your tomorrow depends on the next words you hear. Why does God choose specific days to move? Why not spread his blessings evenly across your calendar, like rain falling on every rooftop in Brooklyn? And why, after decades of your faithful service, your tearful prayers, your silent sacrifices, why would he suddenly mark one Friday in December as the day everything shifts? Because, chosen one, God doesn't operate on convenience, he operates on divine appointments. Let me take you back through scripture for a moment, and I need you to really hear this. Abraham didn't stumble into his promise on a lazy Tuesday afternoon. Genesis 22 tells us God gave him a specific mountain, a specific moment, a specific test that would define generations. Moses wasn't casually walking through the desert when that bush caught fire. Exodus 3 makes it clear God had been watching him for 40 years, waiting for the exact hour when Moses was broken enough, humble enough, ready enough to receive the impossible assignment. Esther had her for such a time as this moment. Esther 4:14. One night, one decision, one woman standing between genocide and deliverance. David had the moment Goliath stepped onto that battlefield. One day that separated the shepherd boy from the king. And you, dear heart, you have Friday. This isn't poetry, this is pattern. God moves in appointed times, and your age, your 70, 80, 90 years of walking this earth, that doesn't disqualify you. It perfects your discernment. You've lived long enough to know the difference between coincidence and confirmation. You've survived enough false alarms to recognize when the real thing is approaching. Your spirit has been calibrated by decades of experience, and right now, it's telling you something is different about this week. You felt it, didn't you? Maybe it started Sunday night, a restlessness you couldn't explain. Maybe Monday you woke up thinking about people you haven't seen in 30 years. Tuesday, your body felt heavy even though you weren't sick. Wednesday, time started moving strange, like you were walking through thick air. That wasn't random. That was your spirit, receiving advanced notice that a divine appointment is approaching. Here's what most preachers won't tell you, but I will. When heaven prepares to release something significant in your life, hell mobilizes. Spiritual warfare doesn't heat up because you're doing something wrong. It intensifies because you're about to do something right. The attacks always increase the night before the breakthrough. The doubt always screams loudest right before the dawn. Think about it. The Israelites didn't face Pharaoh's army until they were steps away from the Red Sea. Jesus didn't face his greatest temptation until after 40 days of fasting, right before his public ministry began. Paul didn't get shipwrecked until he was on his way to Rome to testify before Caesar. The opposition rises because the opposition knows. Hell can read divine calendars better than most Christians can. And when Friday was marked in heaven's ledger as your day of elevation, every demon in your region got the memo. This is why you've felt under attack this week. This is why sleep has been difficult. This is why old fears suddenly resurfaced. This is why family tension spiked out of nowhere. This is why your body ached in places that were fine last week. You're not falling apart. You're being pushed back because something in you is about to push forward. Let me give you a picture that'll make this clear. You know that hour right before dawn? That's when the sky is darkest. Not at midnight, not at 2 a.m., but that final hour before sunrise. That's when you can barely see your hand in front of your face. Why? Because the sun is closest. The darker it gets, the nearer the light. You're in that hour right now. This heaviness you feel isn't the end. It's the evidence that your sunrise is nearly here. Friday is not a date on a calendar, beloved. It's a checkpoint in the spirit. It's a threshold between what was and what will be. It's the moment when years of preparation collide with divine permission, and suddenly, impossibly, everything you've been praying for starts moving at once. But here's the part that's going to determine whether you cross that threshold or stand outside looking at it. There are 7 spiritual landmines between you and Friday's blessing. 7 things you absolutely cannot do tomorrow if you want to walk into what God has prepared. These aren't suggestions from some motivational speaker trying to fill time. These are warnings from heaven, delivered through someone who's watched too many chosen ones sabotage their breakthrough in the final hour. Each one of these 7 traps is designed specifically for people like you, not the young, not the reckless, but the seasoned believers. The ones who've walked with God long enough to think they know all the tricks. The ones whose discernment is sharp, but whose guard has dropped just a fraction because, let's be honest, you're tired. You've been fighting a long time. And that's exactly when the enemy strikes. Not when you're weak. When you're weary. Not when you're sinning. When you're almost there. If you felt that strange heaviness this week, if you've sensed something shifting in the atmosphere around your life, I need you to do something right now. Comment, I felt it. Not for me, for you. Because when you declare what your spirit already knows, you activate your agreement with heaven. And heaven moves faster when it sees unity between your spirit and your words. The first of these 7 warnings is so subtle that most people miss it completely. It doesn't look like a trap. It looks like wisdom. It feels like caution. And that's precisely what makes it so dangerous. Because tomorrow morning, the enemy is going to whisper something in your ear that sounds so reasonable, so logical, so safe, that you'll think it's your own thought. But it's not. And if you listen to it, you'll miss the very thing God positioned this entire week to deliver. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you next could be the difference between stepping into your Friday blessing and watching it pass by while you stand frozen in the doorway. Listen to me, chosen one. I need you to think back for just a moment. Think about that relationship that nearly destroyed you. Think about that bottle you finally put down after decades. Think about that toxic family dynamic that drained your soul for 40, 50, 60 years. Think about that depression that had you staring at pill bottles at 2 a.m., wondering if anyone would even notice if you were gone. Now let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. Why are you thinking about going back? Don't lie to me. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to God. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That phone number you almost dialed last week. That old habit that whispered your name 3 nights ago. That person who hurt you showing up in your dreams. And you woke up wondering if maybe, just maybe, you should reach out one more time. Stop right there. Lot's wife, Genesis 19:26. She had escaped Sodom. She was steps away from salvation. The angels had literally grabbed her hand and pulled her towards safety. But she looked back. Just one glance. Just one moment of nostalgia for what used to be. And she became a pillar of salt. Frozen forever. In the posture of regression. That wasn't punishment, beloved. That was consequence. There's a difference. God didn't turn her into salt because he was angry. He allowed it because she chose death over deliverance. She chose memory over miracle. She chose yesterday over tomorrow. And here's what's going to shake you to your core. The enemy doesn't attack you on random Tuesdays. He attacks you the night before your promotion. He brings back your past right before God unveils your future. He knows that if he can get you to turn your head back toward yesterday's shadows while you're walking toward tomorrow's sunrise, he can freeze you in place just like Lot's wife. You're standing at 75, 80, 85 years old, and the devil is playing highlight reels in your mind. Not the abuse, not the tears, not the nights you begged God to kill you because living hurt too much. No, he's showing you the edited version, the sanitized memory, the lie that it wasn't really that bad, that maybe you overreacted, that maybe you should give it one more chance. That's not nostalgia, dear one. That's demonic strategy. Philippians 3:13. Paul said it plain. Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal. But notice something. He didn't say casually letting go of the past. He said forgetting, active, intentional, violent even, like ripping off a bandage that's been stuck to a wound for decades. Your body may feel tired at your age. Your knees might ache. Your back might hurt. But your spirit is still young. Your spirit is still fierce. Your spirit still has fight left in it. And Friday requires that you keep moving forward, not backward. Some of you right now are feeling convicted. You know exactly what God pulled you out of. That marriage that was killing you slowly. That church that made you feel worthless. That friendship that drained you dry. That job that destroyed your peace. That addiction that stole 20 years of your life. God didn't just help you leave. He rescued you. He dragged you out kicking and screaming because you were so trauma-bonded to your own destruction that you called it home. And now? Now you're entertaining the thought of going back. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Some doors stay closed because the blessing behind them isn't yours anymore. That door is locked, not because God is withholding something good. It's locked because what's behind it would kill the version of you that he's been building in secret. You think you want that person back? That version of you who had that person is dead. You think you want that old life back? That version of you who lived that life doesn't exist anymore. You've been transformed, refined, rebuilt, and the old door doesn't fit the new you. Proverbs 26:11. As a dog returns to its vomit, so fools repeat their folly. Harsh? Yes. True? Absolutely. God's not being poetic here. He's being surgical. He's saying that going back to what made you sick will make you sick again. The poison doesn't become medicine just because you missed the taste. You survived that thing. Do you understand what that means? At your age, after everything you've been through, you survived what was designed to destroy you. The affair, the bankruptcy, the diagnosis, the loss of your child, the betrayal, the abandonment. You didn't just survive, you're still here, still breathing, still believing. That's not luck, that's divine preservation. And now Friday is coming, a day marked by heaven, a day when God is about to do something so significant in your life that hell has been working overtime to distract you. And the oldest trick in the devil's playbook, make you think the past was better than the future. It wasn't. It isn't. It never will be. So here's what I need you to do right now. If God ever pulled you out of something that almost killed you, if He ever rescued you from a pit you dug yourself into, if He ever yanked you away from a door that looked like blessing but was actually burial, I need you to type 3 words in the comments right now. No going back. Say it out loud where you're sitting. Let your own ears hear your mouth make a covenant with heaven. Because Friday is too important. Your destiny is too valuable. Your latter years are too anointed. You cannot afford to waste them looking backward. The Israelites did this. Exodus 16:3. They got hungry in the wilderness and said, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted." They forgot the whips, the slavery, the babies thrown into the Nile. All they remembered was the food. That's how deceptive nostalgia is. It erases the pain and highlights the pleasure. Don't do that. Don't romanticize your Egypt. Don't airbrush your Sodom. Don't make your past look better than it was just because your present feels uncomfortable. Discomfort is not punishment. It's preparation. The wilderness isn't where you die. It's where you learn to depend on manna from heaven instead of scraps from Pharaoh's table. You're not going back. You can't go back. That version of you is dead and buried. And Friday? Friday is Resurrection Day. But you can't resurrect if you keep visiting the tomb. So I'm asking you one more time. Are you going to walk into Friday with your eyes forward? Or are you going to stumble into it looking backward? Because one posture leads to breakthrough. The other leads to salt. Choose life. Choose forward. Choose the future God has already prepared. But here's what you need to know about Friday, and this is where it gets even more urgent. The second thing you cannot do tomorrow is just as dangerous, if not more. Because while the first warning protects you from your past, the second one protects you from poisoning your future. Stay with me. This is where it gets deeper. Now listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you will determine whether Friday opens like a door or closes like a coffin. Your mouth is not just a mouth, it's a weapon. And tomorrow, you need to understand something that most people will never grasp in their entire lives. The words you speak don't just describe your reality, they create it. Proverbs 18:21 says it plainly. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Not death or life. Death and life. Both. Sitting right there on your lips, waiting for you to choose which one gets released into the atmosphere around you. You've been alive long enough to know this is true. Think about it. How many times have you said, "I just knew something bad was going to happen," and then it did? How many times have you whispered, "I can't afford this," and watched your bank account prove you right? How many times have you declared, "Nobody calls me anymore," and then spent another week staring at a silent phone? You thought you were just venting. You thought you were just being realistic. But what you were actually doing was prophesying. And dear one, prophecy works both ways. Here's what happens in the spiritual realm that you cannot see with your natural eyes. Every word you speak carries frequency. It vibrates. It moves through the invisible atmosphere like ripples in water. And those ripples, they don't just disappear. They build. They gather energy. They attract circumstances that match their vibration. When you speak fear, you give the enemy ammunition. When you speak doubt, you hand hell a blueprint. When you declare lack, you're placing an order with the very forces that want to see you destroyed. But when you speak faith, when you open your mouth and declare what God has already promised, you're not just talking, You're legislating. You're not just hoping. You're commanding. You're giving heaven legal permission to move on your behalf. This is spiritual physics, chosen one. Words are seeds. And Friday's soil is already prepared. The question is, what are you planting in it today? Now I need to talk directly to you, because you've earned the right to hear hard truth. You've been speaking survival for 40, 50, 60 years. I'm just trying to make it through. I'm just hoping to get by. If I can just hold on a little longer. Survival language, barely making it vocabulary. And listen, I understand why. Life beat you down. People betrayed you. Dreams died. Money disappeared. Health failed. But survival was never your destiny. It was your training ground. You survived so you could learn how to thrive. You endured so you could discover your authority. You made it through the valley so you could speak to others, walking through their own valleys, and say with confidence, there is a way out, and I'm the proof. But if you walk into Friday still speaking the language of survival, you will miss what God is trying to hand you. Because destiny doesn't respond to desperation. Destiny responds to declaration. Let me ask you something that's going to sting. When was the last time you spoke life over yourself? Not just prayed it quietly, not just hoped for it silently. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and said out loud, I am blessed, I am chosen, I am walking into favor. My latter days will be greater than my former days. I'll tell you why you haven't done it. Because somewhere along the way, someone convinced you that speaking faith made you delusional. That declaring victory before you saw it made you foolish. That believing for more than you currently have made you greedy. That is a demonic lie designed to keep your mouth shut and your destiny locked. Jesus didn't whisper to the storm. He commanded it. He didn't suggest to Lazarus that maybe, possibly, if conditions were right, he might consider coming out of the grave. He shouted, Lazarus, come forth, and death had no choice but to obey. You carry that same authority. The same spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in you. Romans 8:11. But that authority is activated by your words. So let me tell you what's at stake tomorrow. Friday is a day of divine appointment. Heaven has scheduled something with your name on it. But if you spend tonight and tomorrow morning rehearsing your fears, complaining about what's not working, declaring what you don't have, you will create a spiritual atmosphere so thick with negativity that the blessing can't penetrate it. Your words shape the weather of your tomorrow. Think about that. Right now, with every sentence coming out of your mouth, you are either clearing the runway for blessing to land, or you're building walls that block it from reaching you. I'm too old for things to change now. That's a wall. Nobody cares about me anymore. That's a wall. I'll probably never see that prayer answered. That's a wall. And, chosen one, you've been building walls for so long that you've trapped yourself in a prison made of your own declarations. But here's the miraculous part. The same mouth that built the walls can tear them down. The same tongue that spoke death can speak life. You are not stuck. You are one declaration away from freedom. Joel 3:10 says, let the weak say, I am strong. Not let the weak feel strong. Not let the weak become strong first, and then say it. Let the weak say it. Speak it when it's not true yet. Declare it before you see it. Prophesy your own resurrection. Tomorrow, Friday, you will be tempted. The enemy will send thoughts rushing into your mind. Fear about your health. Worry about your finances. Anxiety about your children who don't call. Dread about your future. And those thoughts will try to become words. Don't let them. Catch those words before they leave your lips. Slam your hand over your mouth if you have to. Because once fear is spoken, it becomes fuel. The enemy takes your words and uses them as evidence against you in the courts of heaven. He says, see, even they don't believe they're blessed. Even they're declaring their own defeat. But when you speak faith, even when your circumstances scream otherwise, you tie the enemy's hands. You render his weapons useless. You shift the entire spiritual atmosphere from death to life. So here's what I need you to do, right now, not later, right now. I want you to declare in the comments, "My mouth will serve faith." Type it, release it. Let heaven hear your agreement. Because when you declare it publicly, you're making a covenant. You're saying, "I refuse to let fear be the narrator of my Friday." Your mouth is the bridge between heaven and earth. Use it wisely, use it powerfully. Use it to call forth what God has already prepared. Because tomorrow is too important to sabotage with your own words. And what I'm about to show you in warning #3 will reveal why the enemy is so desperate to keep you speaking fear. Now listen to me very carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you might save your entire Friday from spiritual sabotage. Your heart is kind, too kind at times, and the enemy knows it. At 70, 80, 90 years old, you've spent decades being the one everyone calls when they need something. You're the grandmother who always answers the phone, the grandfather who never says no, the friend who shows up even when your own body is screaming for rest. You've been trained by life, by faith, by culture, to believe that saying no is selfish, that protecting your peace is somehow un-Christian. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times have you hung up the phone feeling drained? How many visits left you exhausted for days? How many conversations reopened wounds you thought had finally healed? That wasn't fellowship. That was theft. Proverbs 4:23 warns us, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Guard. Not share freely with everyone. Not leave the door open for anyone who knocks. Guard. That's a military term. That's a warfare word. Because some people, dear one, are not coming to build you up. They're coming to break you down. And Friday they will try. Here's the pattern. Watch for it. An old friend calls out of nowhere. Someone you haven't heard from in months, maybe years. They'll say they were just thinking about you. They'll ask how you're doing with that voice that sounds concerned. And within 5 minutes, the conversation shifts. Suddenly it's about their crisis, their need, their emergency that somehow only you can solve. Or maybe it's family. That daughter-in-law who only calls when she needs money. That son who shows up unannounced, stays for hours, and leaves you feeling guilty for wanting your own space. That cousin who brings up old family drama every single time, stirring pots that should have been buried decades ago. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Not everyone in your family is family. Not everyone who shares your blood shares your spirit. Jesus himself said in Matthew 10:36, "A man's enemies will be the members of his own household." Did you catch that? Enemies. In your own household. I'm not telling you to hate anyone. I'm telling you to recognize the difference between people who pour into you and people who drain you. Between those who celebrate your peace and those who disturb it. Between assignments from God and assassinations from hell. Some people are like storms. They don't mean to drown you, but they do. They don't wake up plotting your destruction, but their presence brings chaos. Their energy is a vortex. They pull and pull and pull until you've got nothing left to give, and then they wonder why you're not the same person you used to be. They're not evil, they're just not for you. Not for your season, not for Friday. Here's what's going to happen tomorrow. The phone will ring, or the doorbell, or that text message will come through with a tone you recognize immediately. And in that split second, your spirit is going to send you a signal. You're going to feel it in your gut. A heaviness, a hesitation, a quiet voice whispering, "Not today." Listen to that voice. That's not you being mean. That's not you being selfish. That's the Holy Spirit giving you discernment. 1 Corinthians 2:15 says, "The person with the Spirit makes judgments about all things." You have spiritual authority to discern who belongs in your space and who doesn't. You have divine permission to protect the day God has marked for you. But here's where it gets tricky. Guilt will try to override discernment. You'll think about how they helped you once, 20 years ago. You'll remember that time they were there for you, and now you feel obligated to be there for them forever. You'll hear your mother's voice in your head saying, "Family is family." You'll feel the weight of being a good Christian, a good person, a good friend. Let me tell you what the Bible actually says. Galatians 6:2 tells us, "Carry each other's burdens." But verse 5 says, "Each one should carry their own load." There's a difference between a burden and a load. A burden is temporary, something someone can't handle alone. A load is their daily responsibility, and they need to carry it themselves. You were never called to carry someone else's load. You were never assigned to be their permanent crutch. You were never meant to sacrifice your divine appointment so they can continue avoiding theirs. Some of you right now, a name just flashed through your mind. A face appeared. Your chest tightened because you already know who's going to try to access your Friday. You can predict the call. You can hear the tone. You can already feel the drain starting, and it hasn't even happened yet. That's your spirit warning you. Don't ignore it. Don't override it with guilt or religious obligation. Don't let 70 years of people-pleasing sabotage what heaven has prepared for you. Here's the hard truth, and I need you to receive this with the love it's intended. Some people have been assigned to keep you stuck, not by the devil directly, but by their own unhealed wounds, their own refusal to grow, their own addiction to chaos. And if you allow them access to Friday, they will derail you. Not because they're evil, but because misery loves company and chaos seeks chaos. You cannot afford it. Not tomorrow. If a name popped into your spirit just now, don't type it. Don't announce it. Just type these 2 words in the comments. Not tomorrow. Let that be your declaration. Let that be your boundary, set in spiritual stone. Because here's what's at stake. Friday is not just another day. It's a portal, a threshold, a divine appointment where heaven is trying to download something into your spirit that will change the trajectory of your remaining years. But you must be spiritually present to receive it. You must be emotionally available. You must be energetically aligned. And you cannot be any of those things if you spend 4 hours on the phone with someone who refuses to heal. You cannot receive heaven's download if you're cleaning up someone else's mess. You cannot hear God's whisper if you're drowning in someone else's storm. So guard your day like your life depends on it, because spiritually it does. The wrong person in your space tomorrow won't just drain your energy. They'll block your blessing. They'll interrupt your alignment. They'll cause you to miss the very thing God circled Friday for in the first place. But there's something even more dangerous than letting the wrong person in. And it's something most believers never see coming until it's too late. Now listen to me very carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you might save your entire Friday from becoming just another missed opportunity in a lifetime of almosts. You know that whisper, that quiet nudge you've been feeling in your chest for the past 70, 80 years. The one you've learned to ignore because the world told you it was just your imagination, just your age, just your nerves acting up again. That whisper has a name. It's called the voice of God. And tomorrow, Friday, He's going to speak to you in frequencies so soft that if you're distracted for even a moment, you'll miss the most important instruction of your life. Here's what terrifies me about seniors in America right now. You've lived long enough to accumulate decades of wisdom, survived wars and depression, and losses that would have destroyed lesser souls. Your spirit carries an instinct so sharp it can smell rain 3 days before the storm hits. But somewhere along the way, the noise of this world convinced you to stop trusting that inner knowing. You started second-guessing the very gift God spent a lifetime refining in you. 1 Kings chapter 19 verse 12. After the earthquake and the fire and the wind, Elijah heard a still small voice. Not thunder, not lightning, not a burning bush or a pillar of cloud. A whisper. So quiet that if Elijah had been checking his phone, arguing with his neighbor, or drowning in worry about tomorrow's bills, he would have missed the very voice of the Almighty. Why does God whisper, you ask? Because he wants you to lean in. He wants your full attention. He wants to separate those who are merely religious from those who are truly intimate with him. Tomorrow, Friday, in the middle of your ordinary morning, God is going to drop a thought into your spirit. It might come while you're pouring your coffee. It might arrive while you're staring out your kitchen window at the same tree you've looked at for 40 years. It might whisper while you're sitting in that worn recliner, feeling forgotten by a world that worships youth. And that thought, that quiet impression, that gentle nudge, it will feel so small, so insignificant, so easy to dismiss. Your logical mind will say, "That's not God. That's just me thinking." I'm too old for divine revelations. Those are for pastors and prophets, not for someone like me living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. But what if I told you that whisper contains the exact coordinates to your breakthrough? What if that still, small voice is trying to redirect you 3 inches to the left so you don't miss the miracle walking past you at 2:47 p.m. tomorrow afternoon? Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many whispers have you already ignored this year? How many times did your spirit say, "Call that person," and you didn't? How many moments did something tell you, "Don't say that," and you said it anyway? How many divine nudges did you dismiss as coincidence, as random thoughts, as your mind playing tricks on an aging brain? Those weren't accidents. Those were tests. And tomorrow, Friday, the test gets harder because the stakes get higher. Heaven rarely shouts, beloved. Heaven nudges. God doesn't compete with the television, the telephone, or the endless chatter of fear running through your mind at 3 a.m. He waits, he watches. And when your spirit finally gets quiet enough, still enough, surrendered enough, he releases one sentence that will alter the trajectory of everything. But here's the problem. You've been conditioned to trust logic over intuition. You've been trained to believe that if you can't see it, measure it, or explain it to your skeptical children, it's not real. You've spent decades in a culture that mocks spiritual sensitivity and calls it superstition. So when God whispers tomorrow, your first instinct will be to analyze it, question it, rationalize it away. That can't be God. God wouldn't speak to me. I'm not special enough. I'm not holy enough. I haven't been to church in 6 months. Stop. Right there. That voice of disqualification, that's not your voice. That's the enemy trying to jam the frequency between you and heaven. Your decades of wisdom, your years of surviving impossible situations, your lifetime of watching God show up when logic said he wouldn't, that instinct you carry is not outdated. It's refined. It's been sharpened by every storm you've weathered. Your spiritual antenna is more sensitive now than it was at 20, 30, 40 years old, because you've learned something the young haven't figured out yet. You've learned that God moves in whispers, not in noise. Proverbs 20 verse 27 says, "The spirit of man is the candle of the Lord." You are not just flesh and bones waiting to expire. You are a living, breathing receptor of divine communication. And tomorrow, that candle inside you is going to flicker in a specific direction. The question is, will you follow it, or will you blow it out with doubt? Here's what's going to happen on Friday if you ignore that still, small voice. You'll make a decision based purely on what makes logical sense. You'll say the safe thing instead of the true thing. You'll stay home when you were supposed to go out. You'll throw away the letter you were supposed to mail. You'll hang up on the call you were supposed to answer. And 3 weeks from now, you'll realize you missed it. You'll see the evidence of what could have been, and you'll whisper to yourself, "I knew I should have listened, but it'll be too late." Because divine appointments don't reschedule. Windows of opportunity don't reopen just because you weren't paying attention the first time. Tomorrow requires you to be sensitive, soft, and still. Not hard, not skeptical, not so full of fear and analysis that you can't hear anything except your own worried thoughts echoing in your head. Stay sensitive, even when the world calls it foolish, even when your grown children roll their eyes, even when your own mind tries to talk you out of it. That sensitivity is your superpower. It's what marks you as chosen. Stay soft, not weak. Soft, there's a difference. Soft enough to bend when God redirects. Soft enough to receive instruction without arguing back. Soft enough to trust what you feel even when you can't yet see the evidence. Stay still. In a culture addicted to noise, movement, and distraction, your stillness becomes your sanctuary. God is guiding your steps into Friday's blessing, but He can only lead those who are willing to pause long enough to hear the directions. So let me ask you plainly, do you want clarity tomorrow? Do you want to hear what God is trying to tell you? Then you need to make a decision right now before Friday even arrives. If you want clarity tomorrow, if you're ready to tune your spirit to heaven's frequency, type this in the comments right now. Lord, I'm listening. That's not just a comment, that's a contract. That's you telling God, I will not let the noise of tomorrow drown out your voice. I will not let fear overpower my faith. I will not dismiss the whisper just because it's quiet. Because what's coming on Friday isn't going to announce itself with trumpets and fanfare. It's going to arrive in a whisper. And only those who are listening, really listening with their spirit and not just their ears, will catch it. But there's something else you need to understand about Friday. Something even more dangerous than ignoring the whisper. Because while you're learning to listen, there's a force working overtime to make sure you stay distracted. And that brings us to the fifth warning, the one that will explain why your emotions have been so unstable this week and what you absolutely cannot allow to happen tomorrow. Now we enter the valley where most chosen ones fall. Not because they lack faith, but because they trust the wrong voice at the critical moment. Chosen one, I need to speak directly to that exhaustion you've been carrying. That heaviness in your bones when you wake up. That weariness that whispers, you've done enough. You've fought enough. It's time to rest. Listen to me carefully. Fatigue is a liar. Your body may be 70, 80, 90 years old, but your assignment doesn't age. Moses was 80 when God called him to split the Red Sea. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." These weren't young men in their prime. These were weathered warriors who understood something the world never will. Spiritual momentum doesn't follow physical energy. On Friday, you're going to feel tired, not the normal tired. A spiritual exhaustion that settles over you like a weighted blanket. It will whisper in your morning coffee, "Stay home." Skip that call. Ignore that prompting. You're too old for this. That's not wisdom speaking. That's warfare. Nehemiah 6-9 records the enemy's strategy. They were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. Did you catch that? The enemy doesn't attack your faith directly. He attacks your strength. He makes you believe you're too tired to finish what God started. But here's what fatigue will never tell you. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're close. The finish line exhaustion hits hardest in the final mile. Every runner knows this. Your legs scream quit when the ribbon is 10 feet away. Why? Because the enemy knows if he can get you to stop now, you'll never know how close you actually were. That doctor's appointment that's been draining you, that's not just medical. That family conflict that's stealing your sleep, that's not just relational. That financial pressure that makes you want to give up, that's not just circumstantial. Friday is the day hell has been pushing you toward collapse, because Friday is the day heaven scheduled your breakthrough. Don't you dare trust your fatigue tomorrow. When your body says quit, your spirit needs to roar louder. God didn't bring you this far to abandon you at the threshold. Every battle you've survived, every loss you've endured, every night you cried yourself to sleep, it was all preparation for Friday. You're not tired, you're being tested, and chosen ones don't quit when they're this close. Now hear this, and hear it clearly. Friday will present you with opportunities that feel urgent. A phone call that demands immediate response. A financial decision that can't wait. A relationship conversation that needs to happen right now. And every single one of them will carry the same poison, the illusion of urgency. Rushing is how the enemy sneaks in the fine print. Think about Esau in Genesis 25. One moment of hunger, one bowl of stew, one impulsive decision made in haste, and he traded his entire birthright for temporary relief. The Bible says he despised his birthright. He didn't wake up planning to lose everything. He just made a rushed decision when he was vulnerable. How many of you right now are facing a decision that someone is pressuring you to make quickly? They're saying, "This opportunity won't be here tomorrow. You need to decide now. Don't overthink it." That language? That's not God. God never rushes his chosen ones into confusion. Proverbs 19:2 warns, "It is not good to have zeal without knowledge, nor to be hasty and miss the way." Look at that word, hasty. The Hebrew word there is to be pressed, to act rashly. When you're being pressed to decide quickly, that's pressure, not peace. And God doesn't operate in pressure. On Friday, when that moment comes, and it will come, I need you to do something radical. Stop, breathe, pray. Even if they're standing in front of you waiting for an answer, even if the clock is ticking, even if everyone is staring at you expecting a response, pause. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. Anything truly from God can withstand 24 hours of prayer. If it's real, it'll still be real tomorrow. If it's right, it'll still be right next week. But if it requires immediate action without time for discernment, that's a red flag the size of Texas. Peace is your confirmation. The Holy Spirit doesn't create panic, he creates clarity. Isaiah 28:16 declares, "The one who trusts will never be dismayed." Never. Not sometimes, never. So if peace fades when you think about that decision, stop. If anxiety rises when they push for your answer, stop. If your spirit feels unsettled even though it makes sense logically, stop. Friday is not the day to sign anything, commit to anything, or promise anything without the peace of God as your witness. The enemy knows he can't steal your destiny outright, so he'll try to trick you into trading it away in a moment of rushed decision-making. Don't let him. And now we arrive at the most dangerous threshold of all, chosen one. Friday morning, you're going to wake up and feel something strong. It might be fear, it might be anger, it might be sadness so deep you can't name its source. And that emotion, whatever it is, will try to convince you that it's telling you the truth about your day. It's lying. Listen to me. Friday is not emotional. Friday is spiritual. And there's a grand canyon of difference between the two. Your emotions react to the storm. Your spirit reacts to the shepherd. Emotions see the waves and scream, "We're going to drown." But your spirit hears Jesus say, "Peace, be still," and knows the storm has no authority. Think about Peter in Matthew 14. He's walking on water, actually walking on water, doing the impossible. But then verse 30 says, "When he saw the wind, he was afraid and, beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me.'" He saw the wind. He felt the fear. And his emotions convinced him to stop trusting what his spirit already knew, that Jesus had called him out of that boat. How many of you have started something God called you to, but your emotions talked you out of finishing? How many divine assignments have you abandoned because you felt discouraged, felt unqualified, felt too old, felt too broken? Those feelings weren't prophecy. They were interference. On Friday, you're going to feel unqualified. You'll feel like you missed your chance. You'll feel forgotten, overlooked, past your prime. And if you let those emotions make your decisions, you will miss the very moment God has been preparing for decades. But here's what I need you to understand. Feelings are weather. They change, they shift, they blow in and blow out. But your calling, that's climate, that's permanent, that's anchored in the eternal purposes of God, and no emotion, no matter how strong, can cancel what heaven has already decreed. Romans 8:28 doesn't say, "All things work together for good for those who feel good." It says, "All things work together for good for those who love God, who have been called according to his purpose." Your emotions don't determine God's faithfulness. Your feelings don't dictate his plans. So when Friday comes and you feel overwhelmed, Remember, that's not a report from heaven. That's just your soul processing the magnitude of what's approaching. When you feel inadequate, that's not disqualification. That's confirmation that what's coming is bigger than you can handle alone, which means you'll need God every step of the way. Friday, you will not make decisions from your emotions. You will not retreat because of fear. You will not sabotage your destiny because anxiety told you lies at 3 a.m. You are a chosen one. And chosen ones don't follow feelings, they follow the Father. If you're hearing this and something in your chest is saying, "This is for me. This is my warning. This is my moment," then type it right now in bold faith. I will not miss my Friday. Because what's waiting on the other side of these 7 warnings will make every battle you fought worth it. You know what nobody's telling you? That exhaustion you felt Tuesday morning when you woke up drained even though you slept 8 hours, that wasn't age catching up with you. That sudden wave of sadness Wednesday afternoon that came out of nowhere while you were just sitting in your kitchen, that wasn't depression. And that fear that gripped your chest Thursday night, that voice whispering maybe it's too late for you, that wasn't your mind playing tricks. That was warfare. Chosen one. Everything that hit you this week wasn't psychological, it was spiritual. And at 70, 80, 90 years old, you've lived long enough to know when something is off in the atmosphere. You can feel when a storm is coming before the weatherman opens his mouth. You know when someone's lying before they finish their sentence. And right now, your spirit is telling you something has been hunting you all week long. Let me tell you what heaven showed me. Before every divine promotion, there is a spiritual ambush. Not after. Before. The enemy doesn't wait until you receive the blessing to attack it. He attacks you before you even know it's coming. Because if he can knock you off course now, if he can drain your faith this week, if he can convince you to give up just days before your breakthrough, then he never has to face you walking in your full authority. Think about it. When did Pharaoh's army chase the Israelites? Not when they were still in Egypt, making bricks. They chased them at the Red Sea, right at the edge of freedom, right before the miracle. Exodus 14:10 says, "As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified. The attack came at the threshold, right before Moses lifted his staff and the waters split." When did the enemy tempt Jesus in the wilderness? Not during his childhood. Not during his carpentry years. Right after his baptism. Right after heaven opened, and God declared, "This is my beloved Son." Matthew 4:1 tells us, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil." The warfare intensified right before his ministry began. You see the pattern? The closer you get to your appointed moment, the fiercer the resistance becomes. So let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. Why do you think this week has been so hard? Why have you felt so heavy? Why have random memories been tormenting you? Old wounds reopening, past failures replaying in your mind like a horror movie you can't turn off. Because Friday is bigger than you think, and the enemy knows it. You weren't losing ground this week. You were being measured. Heaven was watching to see if you'd quit 5 days before your miracle. You weren't falling behind. You were being positioned. Every attack was actually moving you into perfect alignment. You weren't forgotten. You were being watched by heaven with the kind of attention reserved for warriors about to step into their greatest battle. Job understood this. He lost everything, not because God hated him, but because heaven was proving something to hell. Job 1-8 records God saying to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him." The warfare wasn't punishment, it was proof of his value. The attacks weren't evidence of God's absence, they were evidence of his importance. Let me tell you what really happened this week. While you were feeling attacked, heaven was taking inventory. Every tear you cried, recorded. Every moment you wanted to give up but didn't, documented. Every prayer you whispered when your voice was too tired to speak out loud, heard and answered in realms you cannot see yet. The fatigue you felt? That was spiritual weight being lifted off your shoulders to make room for what's coming. The sadness? That was old grief being purged from your system because you cannot carry yesterday's pain into tomorrow's promise. The fear? That was the enemy's last desperate attempt to convince you that you're not ready, you're not worthy, you're not chosen. But here's what he doesn't want you to know. You weren't attacked this week because you're weak. You were attacked because the promise is near. When David faced Goliath, do you think the giant showed up by accident? No. Goliath was standing between David and his destiny, between the shepherd boy and the throne. 1 Samuel 17:45 records David's words, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." The giant wasn't there to destroy David. The giant was there to reveal David. Every attack you faced this week was designed to make you turn around, to make you doubt, to make you think, maybe I heard God wrong. Maybe this isn't my season. Maybe I should just settle for where I am. But something in you refused to quit. Something ancient and eternal inside your spirit said, "Not this time. I've come too far. I've survived too much. I've buried too many people I love and I'm still here breathing. Which means God's not done with me yet." That's something. That's the oil of the chosen. That's the anointing that doesn't break under pressure. That's the supernatural stubbornness that hell fears more than any spiritual gift, because it means you cannot be moved. The battle wasn't random. The battle was prophetic. It was hell's acknowledgement that something is about to shift in your favor so dramatically that they had to try one more time to stop you, but they failed. You're still here. You're still listening. You're still believing. Friday is not just another day. Friday is the manifestation of what this entire week was preparing you to receive. Every attack was actually clearing the path. Every moment of warfare was actually establishing your authority. Every tear was actually watering the ground where your miracle is about to bloom. If this hits your spirit right now, if you recognize the real war that's been raging around you all week, type, "I see the real war." Let heaven know you're awake. Let the enemy know you're aware. Let your own faith know that you understand what's really happening. Because now that you see the battlefield clearly, now that you know why this week felt so heavy, you're ready to hear the 7 things you absolutely cannot do tomorrow. 7 doors the enemy will try to get you to walk through. 7 traps disguised as normal choices. 7 ways to forfeit what heaven has already signed, sealed, and sent your direction. And the first one? It's the one that's fooled more chosen ones than any other. But before I tell you what you cannot do tomorrow, I need you to see something that's happening right now in the unseen realm, something that will change how you walk into Friday. I see angels standing at the edges of your tomorrow, clearing the path. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. I'm talking about actual celestial warriors with assignments written in the language of heaven, and your name is on every single one of those scrolls. Right now, while you're sitting in that chair, while you're lying in that bed at 2 in the morning unable to sleep, heaven's reinforcements are being dispatched. You may feel alone in your home. The kids don't call as much as they used to. Your spouse is gone. The church you served for 40 years barely remembers your name. The mailbox brings bills, not birthday cards. The phone doesn't ring. The house is quiet except for the television keeping you company. But chosen one, you are surrounded in the Spirit. Hebrews 1:14 asks a question that should make your skin tingle. Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? Sent, not suggested to go. Not invited to help if they feel like it. Sent, commanded. Deployed with military precision. And Friday is a battlefield where heaven plans to win. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How are you still here? No, really. Think about it. That heart attack in 2003 that the doctors said should have killed you. That car accident where the vehicle was totaled but you walked away with bruises. That depression so dark you stood at the edge, ready to end it all, but something stopped you. That cancer diagnosis they said was terminal, yet here you are, still breathing. You want to call that luck? You want to chalk that up to good genes or modern medicine? Some of you should have been dead years ago, but someone stepped in. You were carried when you couldn't walk. You were shielded when you couldn't see the attack coming. You were preserved when everything around you was collapsing. 2 Kings 6:17 tells the story of Elisha and his servant surrounded by enemy armies. The servant panicked, crying out, "What shall we do?" And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." And suddenly the servant saw what had been there, all along the hills full of horses and chariots of fire, all around Elisha. The protection was always there. He just couldn't see it. That's you right now. You think you've been surviving on your own strength. You think you've been making it through these years by sheer willpower. Dear heart, if your spiritual eyes could open for just 5 seconds, you'd fall to your knees weeping at the army that's been standing guard around you. Every morning you woke up was because an angel made sure you did. Every breath you've taken since your last health scare is because heaven said, "Not yet." They still have an assignment. Every time the enemy planned your destruction, a warrior from the throne room of God stepped between you and the attack. You were carried. You were shielded. You were preserved. Not because you were perfect. Not because you never stumbled. Not because your faith never wavered. But because heaven invested too much in you to let hell take you out before your purpose was complete. And now, angels gather again. I'm not speaking poetry to you. I'm speaking prophecy over you. There is supernatural movement happening around your life right now that your natural eyes cannot detect. Friday isn't just another day you'll shuffle through in your slippers. Friday is a convergence point, a divine intersection where your obedience meets heaven's assignment. But here's what makes Friday different from every other divine appointment you've had in your 90 years. This time, you're not walking in blind. This time, God is giving you advance notice. This time, He's showing you the 7 landmines before you step on them. Why? Because the angels assigned to you cannot override your free will. They can protect you from attacks you don't see, but they cannot stop you from making choices that open doors to the enemy. They can fight for you, but they cannot fight your battles if you surrender before the war even starts. Psalm 91:11 promises, "For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways." In all your ways. Not some, not most, all. But that promise activates when you stay in His will, when you walk in His ways, when you obey His warnings. And that's why the 7 things you cannot do tomorrow aren't suggestions. They're spiritual protocols. They're divine boundaries that keep you inside the protection zone where angels have jurisdiction to act on your behalf. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Heaven has dispatched reinforcements with your name on them. But if you walk outside the boundaries, if you ignore the warnings, if you do even one of those 7 forbidden things tomorrow, you step outside the covering. And once you're outside the covering, the angels cannot reach you the same way. This isn't about earning God's love. You already have that. This is about staying in position to receive what He's sending. You don't lock your front door because you don't trust God to protect you. You lock it because wisdom partners with faith. Tomorrow, Friday, you will be tested. The enemy knows angels are coming. He knows heaven is moving. And he will throw everything he has at you to make you step outside the protection zone before the blessing arrives. If you want heaven's help tomorrow, if you want those angels to move unhindered on your behalf, comment right now. Send them, Lord. Let that be your agreement with heaven. Let that be your declaration that you will not sabotage your own deliverance. Because what I'm about to tell you next, the first thing you absolutely cannot do tomorrow, it's something most believers do without even thinking about it. And it's the number one way the enemy has been stealing your breakthroughs for years. Stay with me. The angels are already in position. Now it's time to make sure you are too. But before Friday ever arrives, chosen one, there's something you need to understand about tonight, Thursday night. The hours between now and tomorrow's dawn. Because hell doesn't wait until morning to attack. No. The enemy knows something about spiritual warfare that most believers never learn. You are most vulnerable the night before victory. Listen to what happened to Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The night before the greatest victory in human history, the resurrection that would shatter death itself. What happened? He sweat drops of blood. His closest friends fell asleep. The weight of what was coming nearly crushed him. Luke 22:44 tells us, "And being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground." The night before. That's when the pressure comes. That's when hell throws everything it has at you, hoping you'll collapse before dawn ever breaks. So let me tell you about the 7 midnight traps that are already being set for you tonight. And if you don't recognize them, they will steal Friday's blessing before the sun even rises. The first trap is nostalgia. Tonight, memories you haven't thought about in 40 years are going to flood your mind. That marriage that ended, that child you lost, that business that failed, that moment when you trusted someone and they destroyed you. Suddenly, out of nowhere, it's 1987 again, and you're reliving every detail like it happened yesterday. You think that's random. You think your mind just decided tonight of all nights to take you on a tour through your greatest heartbreaks. No, beloved, that's a setup. The enemy knows that if he can get you stuck in yesterday's pain, you won't be present for tomorrow's promise. He knows that nostalgia isn't just remembering, it's reliving. And when you relive the past, you forfeit the future. Philippians 3:13 is clear. Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. Paul didn't say, ignore the past. He said, forget it. Let it go. Release it. Because what God has for you tomorrow requires all of you, not the version of you that's still bleeding from 1985. The second trap is sudden discouragement. You've been fine all week, maybe even hopeful. But tonight you're going to feel a heaviness drop on you like a wet blanket. No reason, no trigger. Just suddenly you feel tired, empty, like nothing matters and nothing will ever change. That's not depression, dear one. That's demonic assignment. The enemy sends discouragement the night before breakthrough because he knows that if you give up now, just 12 hours before your miracle, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you just held on one more night. 1 Peter 5:8 warns us, your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. He's prowling tonight. And his favorite meal is believers who quit the night before their victory. The third trap is isolation. Tonight, you're going to feel forgotten, invisible. Like nobody cares, nobody sees you, nobody remembers you exist. Your children haven't called. Your friends are busy with their own lives. Even God feels 1,000,000 miles away. And right in that moment, a thought will whisper, why bother? Who would even notice if you gave up? Stop. Right there. That's the trap. Because isolation isn't about being alone, it's about believing the lie that you're alone. Hebrews 13:5 promises, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. God is closer tonight than he's ever been. Your feeling of abandonment is not evidence of his absence. It's evidence that something precious is about to be born, and the enemy is trying to abort it before dawn. The fourth trap is overthinking. Your mind is going to race tonight. Every decision you've ever made will suddenly need to be analyzed. Every conversation will be replayed. Every possible outcome for tomorrow will be calculated, measured, feared. You'll lie in bed staring at the ceiling, spiraling deeper and deeper into thoughts that lead nowhere except exhaustion. Proverbs 3:5 cuts through that chaos with surgical precision. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. You cannot think your way into tomorrow's blessing. You can only trust your way in. Overthinking isn't wisdom, it's warfare. And tonight, it's designed to steal the one thing you need most: rest. The fifth trap is emotional phone calls. Someone from your past is going to reach out tonight. Maybe it's an ex. Maybe it's a family member you haven't spoken to in years. Maybe it's a friend who only calls when they need something. And it won't feel random, it'll feel urgent, important. Like this conversation needs to happen right now. Don't fall for it. That timing is not coincidence, it's strategy. Hell knows that if it can get you emotionally entangled tonight, if it can drain you, trigger you, pull you backward, you won't have the spiritual energy to step into Friday's promise. Ecclesiastes 3-7 reminds us there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. Tonight is not the time. Friday is coming. Guard your peace like your life depends on it, because tomorrow it will. The sixth trap is self-doubt. Tonight, you're going to replay every mistake you've ever made, every time you failed, every moment you wish you could take back, and then a voice subtle, almost reasonable, will whisper, "Someone like you doesn't deserve a miracle. Someone with your past doesn't get a fresh start." Let me tell you something that will set you free right now. Romans 8:1 declares, "Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus." No condemnation. Not some, not most. None. Your past does not disqualify you from Friday's blessing. Your mistakes do not cancel God's promises. You are not too broken, too flawed, too guilty to receive what heaven has prepared for you. The seventh trap, and this is the deadliest, is the lie. "I'm too old." Tonight, you're going to look in the mirror and see every wrinkle, every gray hair, every ache in your bones. And the enemy is going to whisper his final desperate lie: your time has passed. Miracles are for young people. Friday might be special for someone else, but not for you. You're too old. Stop, look at me. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age is not your disqualification, it's your qualification. Every year you've lived, every storm you've survived, every tear you've cried has been preparing you for Friday. This is not your sunset, dear one. This is your finest hour. Midnight is the enemy's playground, but dawn? Dawn is God's. If you will survive tonight, if you will recognize these traps and refuse to fall into them, Friday will be everything heaven promised and more. Type right now, "I will pass my midnight test." Because the battle for Friday's blessing is being fought tonight, and you need to know that you're not just surviving these hours, you're conquering them. Chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your soul. Why can't you sleep anymore? Why do you wake up at the exact same time every night, 2:43 a.m., 3:17 a.m., 4:02 a.m., staring at that clock on your nightstand like it's speaking a language only your spirit understands? You think it's age. You think it's your prostate, your bladder, your restless mind replaying 60, 70, 80 years of memories. But what if I told you that every single time you've opened your eyes in the dark this week, heaven has been recalibrating your internal clock? What if God has been changing your spiritual time zone? Listen to me carefully. You are not experiencing insomnia. You are experiencing alignment. There's a reason the Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3:1, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Not a suggestion, not a maybe, a time. A specific, appointed, divinely orchestrated moment when what was promised finally materializes. And dear one, your clock just synced with God's. You've lived long enough to know that life operates on two clocks. There's the one on your wall that ticks predictably, moving you closer to doctor's appointments and prescription refills and Sunday dinners with family who barely look up from their phones. That clock makes you feel like you're running out of time, like your best years are behind you, like all that's left is waiting. But then there's the other clock, The one you can't see but you've always felt. The one that ticked when you were 19 and knew you'd survive that war. The one that ticked when you were 35 and somehow paid that bill you couldn't afford. The one that ticked when you were 57 and God whispered your name in the middle of your darkest hour and you didn't give up. That clock, it doesn't run on seconds and minutes, it runs on purpose. And Friday, that clock strikes midnight. Every trial you've endured had a timestamp. Every heartbreak, every financial crisis, every night you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if God forgot about you, they all had divine coordinates. Jeremiah 29:11 declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." But here's what most people miss. God didn't just plan your future, He time-stamped it. The reason you felt so restless this week is because your spirit is receiving the notification. Your appointment is approaching. Your name is being called. And unlike the doctor's office where they make you wait 2 hours past your scheduled time, when God says, it's time, you're not late. You're not early. You're right on time. I need you to hear this, especially you who are sitting there thinking you've missed your moment. You who believe that at 73, 81, 92 years old, your season has passed. You who look at younger people getting blessed and wonder why God forgot about you. He didn't forget. He was waiting. Waiting for you to be wise enough to handle what He's about to release. Waiting for you to be humble enough to steward it correctly. Waiting for you to be desperate enough to appreciate it fully. At your age, you think you've seen everything. You've watched presidents come and go, trends rise and fall, technologies transform the world beyond recognition. You've buried friends, survived illnesses, weathered storms that should have destroyed you. And somewhere in all that surviving, you started believing your story was ending. But what if God saved some of the best hours for last? What if the wisdom you carry, the scars you've earned, the faith you've refined through decades of fire, what if all of that was preparation for Friday? What if every gray hair on your head is a crown of glory, and every wrinkle on your face is a map of God's faithfulness, and every ache in your bones is evidence that you're still here, still standing, still chosen? Psalm 92:14 says, "They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green." Fresh and green, not dried up, not forgotten, not finished. The same God who opened Sarah's womb at 90 and called Moses at 80 and gave John the revelation at 95 is the same God who's been synchronizing your clock with heaven's timeline. Heaven is aligning your hours with God's perfect timing. And Friday is the hour when what's been building in the invisible realm finally breaks through into your visible world. But here's the question that will determine whether you step into this divine appointment or miss it entirely. Do you believe you're still on God's clock? Or have you accepted the world's verdict that your time is up? If you feel time shifting around you, if something in your spirit just recognized the sound of heaven's clock striking, type these 3 words right now. I'm in alignment. Because what I'm about to show you next are the 7 things that will stop this alignment dead in its tracks if you do them tomorrow. And the first one, it's the mistake that's cost more chosen ones their breakthrough than any other. Chosen one. As we come to the end of this divine appointment together, I need you to remember 3 things that will carry you through Friday and beyond. First, this message found you for a reason. Not by algorithm, not by accident, but by divine assignment. Heaven circled Friday on your calendar before you were born, and every warning I've shared tonight is your spiritual armor for tomorrow. Second, the alignment you're feeling isn't your imagination, it's confirmation. Your sleepless nights, your restless spirit, that electricity in the air around you, it's all heaven recalibrating your clock to sync with God's perfect timing. You're not late. You're not forgotten. You're right on time. Third, the 7 things you cannot do tomorrow aren't restrictions, they're protection. Each one is a landmine the enemy planted specifically to detonate your breakthrough. But now you see them. Now you know. And what you know, you can avoid. But I need you to hear something deeper than instruction. I need you to feel something more profound than information. You are not alone. I know how it feels at your age. The house is quieter than it used to be. The phone doesn't ring as often. The people who once needed you now barely remember to call. And in those silent hours when you're awake at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, the enemy whispers that you've been forgotten, that your purpose expired with your youth, that God moved on without you. That is a lie from the pit of hell. The same God who knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb is still working in your life right now, in this very moment. Romans 8:28 doesn't have an expiration date. All things work together for good, to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. All things, not some things, not the things from your younger years. All things, including right now, including Friday, including whatever comes next. And beyond God's faithfulness, you have something else. You have this community. Look at these comments below. Thousands of chosen ones just like you, carrying the same weight, feeling the same stirring, walking the same narrow road. You are part of something bigger than yourself. When one of us rises, we all rise. When one of us prays, heaven hears us all. So let me ask you this final question, and I want you to sit with it after this video ends. If God has brought you this far through every valley, every loss, every season that tried to break you, why would he abandon you now at the threshold of your greatest breakthrough? He wouldn't, he won't, he never has. Now, before you leave this sacred space, I want to place my hand on your shoulder through these words and pray over you with the authority of 5 decades walking with the Almighty. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with me through this entire message. Lord, you see them right now. You see the tears they're fighting back. You see the hope they're afraid to feel. You see the weariness in their bones and the fire that still burns in their spirit. Father, I pray that you would breathe fresh wind into their weary souls tonight. Where they feel depleted, restore them. Where they feel forgotten, remind them of their worth. Where they feel confused, bring clarity. Where they feel afraid, replace fear with faith. God, bless their Friday. Protect them from every trap the enemy has set. Open doors that no man can shut. Bring divine appointments, holy connections, supernatural opportunities that can only be explained by your hand. Let them walk through tomorrow with confidence, knowing that heaven itself is watching over them. I pray for their health, Lord. Touch their bodies, ease their pain, renew their strength like the eagle. I pray for their finances. Provide for every need. Open streams in the desert. Multiply what little they have, like you multiplied the loaves and fishes. I pray for their families. Heal broken relationships. Soften hardened hearts. Bring prodigal children home. Restore what the enemy has stolen. Let peace return to their homes. Most of all, Father, let them feel your presence. Not just know about it, but feel it like a warm blanket on a cold night, like a hand on their shoulder in the darkness, like a whisper in their spirit that says, I am here. I have always been here, and I will never leave you. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer with faith, with hope, and with love. Amen. Now, beloved, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me what stirred in your spirit during this message. Ask questions, share your heart. Let this community surround you with prayer. And please, if this message touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear it. There's someone in your life right now, a friend, a family member, someone at church who's walking into Friday unaware and unprotected. Be the vessel that carries this warning to them. Thank you for trusting me with your time tonight. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what God wanted to speak over your life. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell, because Friday is just the beginning. God has more to say to his chosen ones, and I want to make sure you don't miss a single word. Until we meet again, walk in the authority of who you are. You are chosen, you are loved, you are protected, and you are never, ever alone. God bless you mightily, beloved. Your Friday breakthrough is already in motion. Go in peace, go in power, go in the promise that what God has spoken over your life will come to pass. Amen.